Two of our 30-year World Jubilee Series for Ivan Major coverage comes from Leszno in Poland. Welcome to this week's program. Those of you who watched last week will know that Ivan, who we have had in view there briefly, crashed in Heat 1 of the meeting at Leszno and sustained one or two injuries. Unfortunately, it does mean that Ivan is unfit for the second match here at Leszno. If you didn't see last week, it's a 20-heat individual meeting, followed by a six-man, six-lap final. Excellent crowd here at Leszno, the home of Unia Leszno, one of the top teams here in Poland. Of course, Poland's such a speedway-conscious country. And the crowd turning out in force to pay their respect to Ivan Major, 6 times World Speedway champion, appearing here in Poland for the last time. Or at least organising the meeting. He would have been riding, but unfortunately has to purely make a spectator's appearance. So the riders lining up, it's a mixture of home Polish riders, plus 1 or 2 internationals, and some National and British League British riders. We'll meet the riders as we go through each of the first 4 heats, a look at the 16 riders involved. I can tell you, though, that Ivan Major's place in the meeting is taken by Helinski, one of the local juniors. Last week's meeting, though, was won by Roman Jankowski at Leszno. He won the final after Preben Eriksson of Wolverhampton, the Danish rider, had scored a maximum in the 20 qualifying heats. Yes, the points are not carried forward to the final. Once the 20 heats are complete, the top 6 go through to that final, and then it's every man for himself. Ivan personally greeting all of the riders here racing in this Iveco-sponsored meeting. This part of a World Series tour marking Ivan's 30 years in Speedway, which come to an end, sadly, at the end of the season. The tour started in Australia last winter. It's gone all the way through Europe and now arrives here in Poland. The riders lining up for Heat 1 now. It's Helinski riding in red. In blue, it's Peter Glantz, who was 3rd at Leszno. In white, it's Martin Skarasbrick of the Beacon Wolves from Wolverhampton. And in yellow, it's Andrzej Huszka. So those riders at the start now for Heat 1, and away they go. And a superb start off the outside gate for Andrzej Huszka, and Huszka scoring 8 points actually. Leszno just missed out in the final. Helinski is in 2nd place, one of the riders who didn't feature last week. 3rd in blue, it's Peter Glantz. Spinning there as they go down into the turn. The surface not quite perfect. Looks like there's been a fair bit of rain around, or over-watering. The track a little bumpy, as you can see, with the riders just about maintaining control there at some points. Going down into the turn. Helinski closing in all the time now on Andrzej Huszka. This track, typical Polish, big, wide, sweeping turns. Virtually full throttle all the way around. Certainly does breed some fast racers here in Poland, but their lack really of competition at the highest level, for example, in the British League, does mean that Polish Speedway stock overall internationally is at a fairly low ebb. Still, though, very much a popular sport here in this East European country. Coming in for a win then in Heat 1, in yellow it's Andrzej Huszka. 2nd in red it's Helinski, 3rd in white Martin Skarasbrick, and 4th in blue Peter Glantz. So Glantz starting off poorly there after his 3rd place in last week's final. Looking ahead now to race number 2, lining up there in white, Mick Schurer. Mick, who was joint 2nd in the points at Leszno with 13, level with Roman Jankowski, was beaten though in the final out of the top 3 places. He rides in white here. In red it's Zenon Kasperzak. In blue it's Phil White from the Birmingham Brummies. Mitch Schurer in white from the Reading races. And in yellow, it is Bobby Schwartz from the Wolverhampton Beacon Wolves. Schwartz made the final last week, but couldn't quite get into the placings in that race. So Kasper Jacques, our first opportunity to see this rider in red. He didn't ride in the Gniezno meeting. Indeed, has taken Kujawski's place in this one. The basic field of riders all occupying the same numbers as last week, with just 1 or 2 changes in local polls. Well, Kasper Jacques getting edged out there as the man in yellow, Bobby Schwartz, sits the front. Schwartz had a fairly disappointing meeting out at Gniezno, only scored 10 points. Looking now for that second place in white, it's Mitch Scherer. And Scherer driving through there underneath Kasper Jacques, who's relegated to 3rd place. At the back in blue, it's Phil White. So Schwartz leads then with the leg tucked back, building up the speed now into the closing stages of this heat 2. Scherer tucks in on that inside line. The key thing, of course, is how the outside rides. If we're going to get any passing, there's got to be plenty of grip out there for them. Schwartz just having the front wheel lifting on him there. 1 lap to go now in heat 2. Closing in now in red, it's Kasper Jacques, trying to regain the second place he held earlier on. Drifting out now at the back, though, it's Phil White out of contention here in heat 2. It's going to be Bobby Schwartz who lines up joint leadership with Andre Huschka after their first rides each. Schwartz wins heat 2 then. Second in white, Mitch Scherer. Third in red, Zenon Kasper Jacques. And fourth in blue, it was Phil White. On now to the third heat, riding in blue there, Preben Eriksson, the man who was unbeaten until the final last week at Gniezno. On his inside in red, it's Roman Jankowski, the man who beat him in that final. So a chance for revenge now for Eriksson here in heat 3. In white, it's Kim Major, Ivan's son. Had a few meetings with Berwick this year, formerly with Newcastle, also currently racing up at Barrow in their intermediate meetings. In yellow, it's Wojtek Zabielowicz, and Zabielowicz just about made it through to the final last week with an end-of-meeting run that got him into that final where he finished, in fact, in last place. Well, in the race to the turn, it's Eriksson who's made the break. Jankowski is second. Kim Major just going through on the inside of Zabielowicz for 3rd place. So it is Eriksson, who won all those qualifying races at Gniezno, but had to settle for 2nd place in the final, getting his revenge here over the man in red, Roman Jankowski. And again, it's going to be that final race that matters. These qualifying races to find 6 men who will ride in the 6th lap final. Eriksson first, then Jankowski second, and the Dane rides for Wolverhampton in the British League. In fact, captain of Wolverhampton, former Ipswich rider, but indeed started his British career back in '77 with the Wolves. A technicality, though, forced him out of the Wolves side, and he then reappeared with the Witches. Eriksson leads then. Second in red, Jankowski. Jankowski, a former British League rider with Hackney back in the early 80s. Arguably Poland's #1 at the present time, and it's Eriksson who wins then heat 3. Jankowski finishes second. Third in yellow and black, it's Zabielowicz, just getting the 3rd place point there ahead of Kim Major, who headed him earlier on. So it's now Eriksson, Schwartz and Huschka who lead. Moving on now to the other 4 riders in this meeting. In heat 4 in red, it's Keith White. In blue, it's Krzysztofiak. In white, it's Holloway, Malcolm Holloway, and in yellow, it is Reg Wilson. Krzysztofiak in blue, another rider that we haven't seen in Britain before. Well, the touching of the tapes there at the start, of course, international regulations apply, which means that technically a rider is not excluded, but the referee has declared that to be an unsatisfactory start. There you can see Ivan with the scars above the sunglasses. You can see Ivan took quite a knock at Gniezno. Terrible luck for Ivan's mini tour of Poland to only last 1 lap of that heat 1 at Gniezno. Great disappointment for the Polish supporters as well. Riders back to the start then for the 2nd attempt in heat 4. Once more, it's Keith White on the inside, Krzysztofiak in blue. In white, it's Malcolm Holloway. In yellow, Reg Wilson. Holloway showed some impressive form at Gniezno. Let's see how he goes here. But it's Krzysztofiak who's made the start. Second in white, it's Malcolm Holloway. Third in red, it's Keith White. And fourth in yellow, Reg Wilson. Keith White with Milton Keynes in the National League, and Reg Wilson with Birmingham, also in the NL. Wilson won his first 2 rides at Gniezno, but shut out this time in yellow in 4th place. It's Krzysztofiak who leads in blue. Major, an interested spectator there on the centre green, into the halfway stage now of this 4th heat. And after this, all the riders will have taken 1 ride apiece. Krzysztofiak setting up now a situation where he will line up on equal points with his fellow Pole Huszka and with American Bobby Schwartz and Dane Preben Eriksson. 1 lap to go now. 2nd in white, Malcolm Holloway. 3rd in red, Keith White. Keith only scoring 1 point in the Gniezno meeting, picking up a point in his first ride here at Leszno. At the back in yellow, Reg Wilson. And that's the way it looks likely to stay, as Krzysztofiak comes down the home straight to pick up a win in heat 4. 2nd in white, it's Malcolm Holloway. 3rd in red, Keith White, and 4th in yellow, Reg Wilson. So it's Andre Huszka, Bobby Schwartz, Preben Eriksson, and Krzysztofiak, who are all level on 3 points after 1 ride apiece. Looking now at heat 5, riding in blue, it's Helinski, had 2 points in his first ride, and indeed the highest scoring rider off the lineup here in heat 5 is Reg Wilson riding in red. He failed to score in his first heat, that was the last race, heat 4. Helinski riding in blue, he's got 2 points. Riding in white, it's Zenon Kasperzak, he's got 1. And in yellow on the outside, it's Kim Major, who failed to score in his first ride. So a chance here for Helinski in blue to put the pressure on the leaders with a win here that will put him on 5 points. But indeed he's missed the start, and it is the man in white, Zenon Kasperzak, who hits the front. 2nd in red, it's Reg Wilson. But coming around the outside now, driving into the turn, and it's Helinski into 2nd place. Wilson relegated to 3rd. It's Kim Major at the back. So Zenon Kasperzak, one of the up-and-coming riders here in Poland, who leads this 5th race. He was beaten into 3rd place in his first ride. That was heat 2 by Bobby Schwartz and Mick Schirra. Out now to add to his tally. Last week it took 9 points to qualify for the final at Gniezno. That's the kind of target these riders are looking for here at Leszno. And driving through there in yellow, it is Kim Major overhauling Reg Wilson there. Kim got 3 points at Gniezno, and he's already opened his account here at Leszno now in his 2nd ride, driving through on the inside of Reg Wilson. So now coming into the closing stages of this 5th heat, and indeed the checkered flag out, it's the win in white for Zenon Kasperzak. 2nd in blue, it's Helinski. 3rd in yellow, Kim Major, and 4th in red, Reg Wilson. So Helinski moves up to 4, Kasperzak moves up to 4, Reg Wilson remains on 0, and Kim Major moves up to 1. Well, one of the many hats circulating the stadium, commemorating the tour. And the riders out now for heat 6. On the inside gate position in red, it is Krzysztofiak, a winner first time out. In gate 2 in blue, it's Roman Jankowski, beaten by Preben Eriksson first time. In white, it's Peter Glans, failed to score in his first heat. And in yellow, it's Mick Schirra, who was beaten by Bobby Schwartz into 2nd place in heat 2. So 1 rider on 3, 2 riders on 2, and 1 rider yet to score here in the 6th heat. Indeed, 2 Reading riders out here with Glans and Schirra in white and yellow, but Glans getting a knock there as he goes into the turn. And it's Schirra who's away in yellow, 2nd and 3rd. It's a battle between Jankowski and Krzysztofiak. Jankowski can't really afford to drop any more points. He's already been beaten once here today. Came through in the late run, though. He dropped points in his first 2 rides at Gniezno. He won his last 3 to qualify comfortably for the final. So it is Jankowski who leads them here at Leszno here in heat 6. Or indeed in 2nd place rather, it's Mick Schirra who's out in front. Now the significance of the points, apart from getting into the final, the top 3 scorers will take the front grid position in the final, and that can be quite significant. So there's still plenty at stake for the riders, even if they're past 9 points, which, as I say, was last week's cut-off, because they'll be out to try and get onto the front row of the grid in that final. 2 grids of 3, the lineup for the final race. And there's the checkered flag, and it's just a narrow win at the end for the man in yellow. Mick Schirra brings his tally up to 5 now. Roman Jankowski in 2nd place is now on 4. 3rd in white is Krzysztofiak, he's now on 4 points. And Peter Glans brings up the rear, yet to score from 2 starts. In heat 7, Preben Eriksson comes out, 1 win already, and indeed in the qualifying races is unbeaten through this meeting. Slight misspelling of Preben's name there by our Polish colleagues, who are supplying the pictures from Leszno here today. Riding in red, it's Preben Eriksson. In blue, Keith White. In white, it is Phil White. And in yellow, it's Martin Scarisbrick. Eriksson, the only one to win a race first time out of this pack. Indeed, Keith White and Martin Scarisbrick, the only other riders to have scored a point so far. Well, it is Eriksson, indeed, who makes the start. Second in yellow, it's Martin Scarisbrick. Martin started the season with Bellevue after riding for Newcastle last year, but was dropped out of the side to make way for American Eddie Ingles, and was sent down to Wolverhampton, where he's made quite an impression with the Beacon Wolves fans. Being led here by Preben Eriksson, his skipper at Monmouth, and their problems for Keith White. Looks like he's got bike trouble there. Indeed, he's drifting wide there, letting through his namesake Phil White. There's no relation between the two. The race continues. Keith White seems to have got the bike back under power. He did seem to miss a beat at one point, but edged out there, almost ridden out completely there by Phil White as the Brummie rider powered through. Phil White, of course, the former Scunthorpe man, rode to Sheffield and Newcastle in the British League, now with Birmingham in the National. And coming off the turn now to pick up the checkered flag in Heat 7, it's the man in red, Preben Eriksson, 2 wins out of 2. And I wonder if the story's going to be repeated from last week. He won all the qualifiers, but then was beaten in that final. Eriksson now on 6, Scarisbrick on 3. Phil White moves up to 1, and Keith White remains on 1. On now to Heat 8. After this race, all riders will have had 2 starts, and the lineup in this one, in fact, we have 2 heat winners from the first group of races. Andre Huschka in red and Bobby Schwartz in blue. In white, having picked up 1 point in his first ride, is Wojtek Zabielowicz. And in yellow, it's Malcolm Holloway, who picks up 2 points in his first ride. You see the fork covers there, giving good exposure to the sponsors of this tour. An innovative idea that started with this tour in Australia during the winter. 1 or 2 riders in British Speedway have now picked it up, notably Nigel Crabtree with Stoke in the National League, got a similar cover now on his front forks. When will these riders run out of ideas for where places put their sponsors' names? That's what you wonder sometimes. They even put them on the spoilers on the rear wheel, even if they do spin during the race. Andre Huschka then leading in red. Second in yellow, it's Malcolm Holloway. Huschka riding over the bumps there on that turn. You can see him skimming the surface almost. Second in yellow, it's Malcolm Holloway. Third in blue, it's Bobby Schwartz. Disappointment here for the American, dropping 2 points here after winning his first ride and dropping points to Malcolm Holloway. In yellow, Holloway, second string come reserve at Reading. Schwartz, one of the top riders in the British League, just averaging under 10 points a match. Well, in red, it's Andre Huschka, a former British League man with Hackney, Leicester, and also Reading. Wins heat number 8. So Huschka is now on 6 points. Schwartz is on 4. Having finished third there, Malcolm Holloway finishing second is now on 4 points. And at the back it is Wojtek Zabielowicz, who remains on 1. So all riders have now had 2 starts, and on 6 points we have Preben Eriksson and Andre Huschka. On 5 points we don't have anyone at the moment. On 4 points we have Helinski, Jankowski, just adding it up as I go along here. And we also have Bobby Schwartz. That's the current top of the score chart. Race 9 coming up now. Mitch Schurer rides in red, Malcolm Holloway in blue, Helinski in white, and in yellow it's Preben Eriksson. Top class field here for heat 9. Eriksson on 6 points on the outside gate in yellow. Mitch Schurer, one of his closest challengers, on the inside in red. He's got 5, and Holloway and Helinski in blue and white have got 4 each. And it's Eriksson who's made the start. Well, it does look like last week's performance is being repeated here by Preben Eriksson. He was unbeaten in those qualifiers, and indeed heading now for his 3rd win in this week's meeting at Leszno. Eriksson first then, second in red, Mitch Schurer. It's the Dane leading from the Kiwi. Third in white, it's the Pole Helinski, and at the back it's the Englishman Malcolm Holloway. So now, can Schurer do something about this? Eriksson has got something like a 20 to 30 yard lead coming out of the turns on Schurer. Eriksson, who was in that Danish World Team Cup winning squad at Long Beach in California, rode as reserve on that occasion for the Danes rather. Eriksson just missed out on qualification from the Nordic final in the World Championship at Fjellstedt. Only scored 7. He was 9th in that meeting. Disappointment there for Eriksson in that one, but rode in that final, picked up a World Team Cup winners medal. The winner in yellow then, Preben Eriksson, he's now on 9 points. Mitch Schurer picks up 2. His total now is 7. Third in white, it's Helinski. He's now on 5, and Holloway, failing to score there, remains on 4. Going on now to heat 10. The rider taking the inside gate there is Wojtek Zabielowicz. And there the red helmet colour confirming that. Of course, in individual racing, it's red on the inside gate throughout, blue, white and yellow taking gates 2, 3 and 4, reading out from the inside. Zabielowicz then in red, 1 point from his first ride. Zenon Kasperzak rides in blue, he's on 4 points so far. In white it's Keith White, he's on 1 point so far. And in yellow it's Peter Glantz, who failed to score in his first 2 rides after finishing 3rd in last week's final. So Zenon Kasperzak, the highest scoring man here so far. There, Keith White rolling over the tapes. The rule in international racing is if you break them or go over the wheel, go over the line with both wheels, you're out of the race. In Britain, they'd be excluded just for touching them. Leading them off then in blue, it's Zenon Kasperzak, who certainly is showing some fine form here today at Leszno. Kasperzak with 3rd place in his first ride and a win in his second, heading for his 2nd win of the meeting here today. Second in yellow, it's Peter Glantz. So the Reading reserve set to pick up some points here for the first time today. Glantz, who has dropped out of the race side at the start of the season and then recalled midway through the year, is having his best ever season in Britain. Replaced Mark Chessel, who's now with Milton Keynes in the races lineup. 3rd in red, it's Wojtek Zabielowicz. And 4th in white, Keith White, who only scored 1 point last week, and that's his tally. But it's going to be after 3 races for himself here at Leszno. 1 lap to go now here in heat 10, the halfway stage almost of this meeting, certainly the halfway stage of the qualifiers. It's Zenon Kasperzak, who's now coming in for his 2nd win of the meeting, just pips the man in yellow at the line. It's Kasperzak who wins. He's on 7 points now. Peter Glantz getting his 1st points in 2nd place, now on 2. 3rd place to Zabielowicz, he is now on 2, and Keith White in last remains on 1. Lining up now in heat 11, we have in red Bobby Schwartz, in blue Kim Major, in white Martin Skarasbrick, and in yellow it is Krzysztiniak. There the lineup confirmed, and Schwartz has 4 points, Krzysztiniak also has 4, Skarasbrick's on 3, and Kim Major is on 1. Bobby Schwartz there just getting the track ready for him underneath the start. Just got to try and get the groove there so he can get the grip, breaking up the surface with the front wheel. And so Schwartz now trying to get some useful points. So is Krzysztiniak though in yellow. And away from the start it is indeed Schwartz against Krzysztiniak. The pole though in 2nd place. 3rd in white, it's Martin Skarasbrick. At the back in blue, it's Kim Major. So Bobby Schwartz, 4 points in his first 2 rides. Oh, there, a clash between Skarasbrick and Krzysztiniak. And the Wolverhampton rider driving very, very hard underneath the pole. They'd say the poles are robust, but that was certainly a very determined challenge by Skarasbrick. Martin Skarasbrick, who made his name as one of the Bellevue juniors, was then loaned out to Newcastle, moved up to the British League with Newcastle still on loan, and was taken into Bellevue's side this year. Only got half a season's chance though before being farmed out again to Wolverhampton. He's now in 2nd place. Schwartz out in front. 3rd in yellow it is Krzysztiniak. Kim Major still at the back in blue. So Bobby Schwartz, skipper of the American Test and World Championship team, also twice World Pairs champion, wins heat 11 here at Leszno in red. He's now on 7 points. Martin Skarasbrick picks up 2. He's now on 5. Krzysztiniak picks up 1. He's also on 5, and Kim Major remains on 1 point. Riders coming out now for heat 12. This will mean now that all riders will have had 3 rides after this one. Riding in red, it is Reg Wilson. He's failed to score so far. In blue, it's Andrzej Huszka. He's on 6. In white, it is Roman Jankowski. He's on 4. And in yellow, it's Phil White, and he's on 1 point from his first 2 rides. So Huszka, unbeaten in his first 2 rides in blue here. But he's beaten into the start or into the turn by the man in white, Roman Jankowski. Jankowski, the winner of the final at Gniezno. 2 second places here today, and last week he scored 2 second places in his first 2 rides and won his next 3. It looks like that pattern could well be being repeated here today at Leszno. It is Jankowski who leads. 2nd place in blue, it's Andrzej Huszka. And the 2 poles in 1st and 2nd here in heat 12. A long way clear of the 3rd place man. I think at the moment that's Reg Wilson just edging out his fellow Brummie Phil White. But Jankowski recovering after, again, dropping points in his first two rides. Leads here in Heat 12. 1 lap remaining now in this 12th heat. 8 to go after this, prior to that final. More riders still with 2 rides yet to come after this. And it's Jankowski who now closes in on the leaders with a win here in Heat 12. Jankowski wins in white. He moves up onto 7 points. Hushka drops his first points of the meeting. He's now on 8. Reg Wilson finishes in 3rd. He picks up his first point of the day. And Phil White, Wilson's fellow Brummie, finishes, or rather remains, on 1 point. Heat 13 now comes up, and in this one we have, in red, Phil White. In blue, it's Wojtek Zabielowicz. In white, it's Krzysztiniak. And in yellow, it's Helinski. So we've got 3 poles here up against Phil White, taking his second successive ride. White on 1 point. Zabielowicz has got 2, which is a bit of a come down after last week's impressive performance. Krzysztiniak and Helinski, though, both on 5 points. And closely now between Zabielowicz and Krzysztiniak going into the turn. It's Krzysztiniak indeed who leads, coming out of the back straight. Second in blue, it's Zabielowicz. Poles putting on the style here today at Leszno. 3rd in red, it's Phil White. And at the back, it is Helinski. And Helinski coming around on the outside of White now, challenging for that 3rd place. And up in front, it's Krzysztiniak and Zabielowicz battling it out. Krzysztiniak with 5 points needs to pick up about 4 or 5 from his last 2 rides to make sure of a place in the final, and indeed obliges here with the win if he can hang on in Heat 13. Zabielowicz needs the points badly, though, on only 2 points from his first 3 starts. He's virtually out of the final now. I don't think he's going to make it. Zabielowicz in 6th place in last week's final, qualified with 9 points at Leszno, and leaving it a bit late now. Only a 2nd place here, and Zabielowicz looks like he's going to be eliminated. As for Krzysztiniak, he's virtually there. Only needs a couple of points from his last ride. He wins in Heat 13. Krzysztiniak is now on 8 points. Zabielowicz there moves on to 4. Helinski moves on to 6, having just pipped Phil White at the end, and Phil remains on 1 point. We're looking ahead now to Heat 14 as the programmes are totted up there. Ivan on the centre green, studying the form of the riders representing him here today. In Heat 14 in red we have Peter Glantz. Glantz with 2 points so far. Like Zabielowicz, disappointing this week after an impressive performance at Leszno. Riding in blue, it's Reg Wilson. He's on 1. Bobby Schwartz rides in white. He's on 7. And in yellow, it's the unbeaten Preben Eriksson, the Beacon Wolves skipper, meeting his fellow heat leader at Monmouth Green. In yellow, it's Eriksson. In white, it's Bobby Schwartz. Schwartz 2 points behind Eriksson here. On the inside, Peter Glantz. Reading races reserve in the British League, but it is the man in yellow, Preben Eriksson, who makes the start. It's always getting predictable. This Eriksson won all his qualifying races, as I said, at Leszno, and indeed he's doing the same here today at Leszno. Whether he can win the final, though, is up to question, because he was beaten last time, dropping his only point in the race that mattered at Leszno. Eriksson first then, Schwartz is 2nd, 3rd in red it's Glantz. At the back it's Reg Wilson, and Wilson again having a disappointing meeting after scoring well at Leszno. Scored 8 points, but they all came from his first 3 rides. After that just faded out, just missing out the final by 1 point. The leading in yellow is Preben Eriksson, who's already virtually guaranteed himself a place. A win here will put him through into the final. 2nd in white, Bobby Schwartz. 1 lap to go. Schwartz going to watch himself there. This will put him on 9, but he still needs maybe 1 point from his last ride to qualify for the final. As I said, 9 points was the cut-off last week. Interesting to see where it is this week. In the race to the line, it's a win in yellow for Preben Eriksson. He's now extending his unbeaten run to 4 rides, 12 points for Eriksson. Schwartz moves up onto 9, Glantz moves up onto 3, and Wilson remains on 1 point. Large crowd here at Leszno, enjoying the racing here today, getting an international field for them, or rather displaying for them here in this Ivan Major 30-year World Jubilee Series. The lineup for Heat 15. In red it's Malcolm Holloway, he's on 4. In blue it's Martin Scarisbrick, he's on 5. Then we have 2 riders on 7 points in white and yellow, Roman Jankowski and Zenon Kasperzak. Well, both Jankowski and Kasperzak almost in the final. Need to pick up a couple of points, though, from the last races. And in the race to the turn, almost getting there was Malcolm Holloway. But it's the man in yellow, Zenon Kasperzak, who leads. Holloway slightly disappointing in his first couple of rides here today. Only 4 points derived from them, 2 second places and a last. Second place here might raise hopes of a place in the final. who certainly is very popular at small meet. Lives still in the Swindon area, despite riding for the local rivals. Almost getting edged out there by Jankowski, and Jankowski, the meeting final winner at Leszno, is challenging strongly here going into heat 15. Out in front in yellow then it's Kasperzak, and now finally finding the speed through into second place, Roman Jankowski. Third in red it's Malcolm Holloway now, and fourth in blue it's Martin Scarisbrick. Jankowski getting a second place in his first two rides, won his third, now having to settle for another second place, but virtually booking his place in the final. And of course now looking for more points to try and get himself onto the front grid. So coming off the turn now, the checkered flag is out, and it's a win in heat 15 for the man in yellow, Zenon Kasperzak. He's virtually booked his place in the final now. He has now got 10 points with one ride to go. Jankowski is now on 9. Holloway moves up to 5, and Scarisbrick remains on 5. They're both out of things now. So the program's still being checked now as the meeting builds up to its climax. After this one, everyone will have had 4 rides, 1 ride to go for each of them after this, of course, plus the final. Kim Major rides in red here in heat 16. He scored 1 point in his first 3 rides. In blue, it's Mitch Shearer, scored 7 out of 9 from his first 3. In white, it's Andrei Hushka. He's only dropped 1 point so far. He's on 8 points, and on the outside in yellow, it's Keith White. Well, Shearer and Hushka, the men to watch in blue and white. Mitch Shearer, who's got the drop on the pole. But there, the rider in red picking up some grip there as he went into the turn, Kim Major, and crashing into the side of Hushka. And indeed, the race has been stopped. The red lights are on. You can see them flashing just above the perimeter fence. And that race will be restarted. Just waiting for confirmation now from the referee's box of who will be excluded. I think somehow it will indeed be the man in red, Kim Major. The confirmation. I think the starting marshal's about to tell Kim. He's coming up to the start, and there it is. Kim's informed he's excluded as the primary cause of the stoppage. She's not happy with it, and indeed showing a brief burst of temper there as he goes back towards the pits. So 3 riders only in the restart of heat 16. Riding in blue, it's Mitch Shearer. He goes off gate 2. In white, Andrei Hushka off gate 3, and in yellow off gate 4, it's Keith White. Once more, it's Shearer against Hushka going into the turn. It's Shearer who's got the break this time. Hushka again in second place. But coming through now, Keith White. White challenging Hushka going down the home straight. But indeed, giving way to the pole. Hushka in second and White relegated to third. And Hushka now mounting the challenge on Mitch Shearer. New Zealander, if he picks up the 3 points here, will put him into double figures. That will virtually put him in the final. Hushka again, if he picks up 2, he will also have 10, which will put him almost certainly in the final. And of course, again, it's that question of whether they can get onto the front row of the grid. Ericsson's virtually booked 1 place already. Of course, only 2 other places available, with the grids being split into 2 groups of 3. So Shearer leads here in heat 16. Second in white, it's Andrei Hushka. Third in yellow, Keith White. Well, Mitch Shearer, who broke his thigh during the winter, had a long road back to fitness this year, gradually finding his form again this year as he's showing here in Poland. He wins heat 16 in blue to now have 10 points with 1 ride to go. Andrei Hushka is now on 10 also with that second place. Keith White picks up his 2nd points in the meeting. He's now on 2. And of course, Kim Major remains on 1 following that exclusion. So now with 4 rides to go, we have on 12 points Preben Eriksson, on 10 points Mitch Shearer, Zenon Kasperzak and Andrei Hushka. On 9 points we have Bobby Schwartz and Roman Jankowski. Riders coming up now for heat 17, and this we have Helinski in red, Bobby Schwartz in blue, Keith White in white and Roman Jankowski in yellow. These riders having their last ride prior to the final if they can qualify. Helinski's on 6. Really needs a win to have any chance. Bobby Schwartz, Roman Jankowski are both on 9, the riders in blue and yellow. Virtually need just a point to confirm things. Keith White's out of it on just 1 point in white. Well, it's Schwartz who's made the start and racing for the 2nd place around the outside. Roman Jankowski heading his fellow Pole Helinski. Now Schwartz overcooking it almost there, got a bit of grip off the back wheel and suddenly had to swing it round to try and control the bike on the turn. Good bit of riding by Schwartz, recovering from that problem. 2nd in yellow, Roman Jankowski. Well, this will give Schwartz 11 points, or 12 points rather, if he wins this one. Getting pressurized all the time by Jankowski. 3 second places and the win so far for the Pole, who won at Leszno in the first meeting. And indeed, the door left wide open there for the Pole. Fans are on their feet, delighted with that. See one of their own Poles coming through. Jankowski, it is who leads now, having shrugged off the challenge of Bobby Schwartz. And the Poles really do look good on their own shell. The problem is, once they travel away, they do have their problems in adapting to the standards of Western Speedway, which does seem to be leaving behind the East to a certain extent at the moment. And in the race to the line, well, it's Jankowski who gets the win. Jankowski finishes his 5 qualifying rides on 12 points. He's almost certainly in the final. Schwartz finishes on 11. He's also made it through. Helinski finishes with 7. He's out of it. And Keith White finishes on 1 point. He's 18 now in yellow there. It's Malcolm Holloway on 5 points. Vain hope really of qualification. Even if he gets a win, it'll only leave him on 8. Kim Major rides in red. He's only got the 1 point. In blue, it's Peter Glantz. He's only on 3. Phil White rides in white. He's only got 1 point. And Holloway, the top scorer out of these 4, with 5 on the outside. Really, all 4 riders are out of contention for a place in the final, enjoying their last ride here in Poland. Glantz, quite a disappointment after scoring quite a few points at Gniezno. Just looking down the list, Glantz in fact scored 11 points, including 2 wins at Gniezno, and 3rd in the final, but he's struggled here today. But indeed, he's made the start here in Heat 18. It's Peter Glantz out in front, 2nd in yellow, his fellow Reading teammate Malcolm Holloway. 3rd in white, it's Phil White, who rides for Birmingham in the National League. And at the back in red, it's Kim Major. Glantz just looks behind him there to see where the 2nd place man is. And there indeed is that 2nd place man, Malcolm Holloway in yellow. Glantz tucking into the inside line, commanding lead over Holloway now. And Glantz indeed will finish with 6 points with a win here. 1 lap to go. I don't think Holloway's going to mount the challenge, pulling the wheelie there, coming down the home straight. Holloway going wide there. The race is on for 3rd place though, between Phil White and Kim Major. And off the final turn now, I think the checkered flag, yes it is out. Oh, an overslide there almost there by Peter Glantz coming up to the line, just held on. Glantz finishes with 6 and is out of the final. Holloway finishes with 7 with that 2nd place. Phil White finishes with 2 and Kim Major finishes with 1. Coming up now to these final closing heats with the 3 leading riders all appearing in these last 2 races, but they are split up because we have one of them on his own here in heat 19, and that's Mitch Shearer, who rides in yellow. Shearer with 10 points. Scarisbrick lines up on the inside then in red. He's got 5 points. Zabielowicz has got 4. In white, Reg Wilson, he's on 1, and Mitch Shearer on the outside is on 10. Shearer needing a win to virtually book his place in the front row of the grid in the final. Currently on those 10 points, and he could put pressure on the rest. Of course, when I went through that quarter, I think I missed out Ericsson. Of course, Kevin Ericsson, the leader on 12. These men on 10 equals 2nd at the current time. Making the start there, it is Krzysztiniak. No, it's Zabielowicz rather. It's his fellow Pole, but there's Shearer cutting through on the inside. Shearer, Kasperjak and Huschka all battling out for a place in the front row of the grid alongside Kevin Ericsson, and Shearer getting a vital blow here with a win here in heat 19 if he can hold on, but no, he's been edged out by the man in blue, Wojtek Zabielowicz. Well, a win there for Shearer would almost certainly put him on the front row. A 2nd place might not be enough. So it is Zabielowicz in blue who leads here in heat 19. And Zabielowicz, though, has missed out on the place in the final. 7 points will be his final total after this, after 2 3rd places in the last of his first 3 rides. Virtually rule him out. But he's showing his class here in heat 19 with a superb overtake there of Mitch Shearer in yellow. Shearer, a New Zealander like Ivan Major, the man that we are all honouring here today in Poland. Major going out in fine style with this series of meetings throughout the world. All will finish in New Zealand during the winter. There's quite a few meetings lined up down under, I can tell you, in that New Zealand section. A win in blue for Wojtek Zabielowicz. He finishes on 7 points. 2nd place for Mitch Shearer. He finishes on 12. 3rd place for Martin Scarisbrick. He finishes on 6. And Reg Wilson finishes on 1. Well, Shearer now has 12 points. Zenon Kasperjak lines up in heat 20 in red, seeking to get a win to put him on that front row for sure with 13, and will put him as runner-up in the qualifiers in this second meeting of the major series here in Poland. But of course, Preben Eriksson rides in white. He's got 4 wins and is virtually certain of a place on the front row. Just needs to pick up a point here really to confirm. It's Kasperzak then on the inside in red. He's got 10. In blue it's Krzysztof. He needs points, so he's on 8. In white it's Eriksson, he's on 12, and in yellow it's Huška, he is on 10. Kasperzak, Eriksson and Huška virtually guaranteed of places in the final. Krzysztof needs to get some points here to put him in there as well, but the tape's been broken there at the start. The bottom row, I think, just snapping. I don't know if we're going to get an exclusion from the referee. New tape's being brought across. It's being tightened up there at the start. But indeed, it looks like it's the same field of riders, no exclusions here in Heat 20. Once more then, it's Kasperzak on the inside, Krzysztof in blue, Eriksson off gate 3 in white, Huška off gate 4 in yellow, and once more our Polish colleagues slightly amending Preben Eriksson's spelling there. Mind you, when you think about what we do to some of the Polish names over here. So the final qualifying heat of this Gniezno meeting, or rather this Leszno meeting, comes to the tapes here in Heat 20, with the 6-man, 6-lap final still to come, of course. Well, that's a torrid first turn there, sweeping through on the inside is Krzysztof, but recovering, it's Preben Eriksson. Eriksson having a very rough ride there. Second place now, it's Huška trying to edge his fellow Pole out of the way. Krzysztof, though, having nothing to do with it, but Huška eventually forcing him out. Marvellous race for second place between these poles. And Huška lifts there, almost catching Krzysztof, but down he goes. Huška, I think, will be swift to rebound as we pick up the action again on the final bend of the 3rd lap. Or was that the 2nd lap? 2nd lap, indeed. Leading in white, it's Preben Eriksson. Krzysztof in second now. Kasperzak is 3rd. Huška has remounted, but is at the back. It looks like all 4 of these are going to make the final. And it does look indeed that Kasperzak has missed out on the place in the front row. A weight confirmation on that one. It looks like Jankowski, Schirra and Eriksson will be the front row candidates in the final. Coming off the turn now, the final section of the race, and it's won by the man in white, Preben Eriksson. 5 wins out of 5 in the qualifiers, just like Gniezno. He'll be the leading qualifier for the final in the front row position guaranteed. Second place to Krzysztof. He makes 10 points now, which indeed puts him level on 10 points, and we'll have to sort out who's going in the final now. Kasperzak qualifies for the final on 11, and Huška finishes on 10. Well, there you see Ivan Major's foot in plaster there. Ivan bruised and battered after that crash at Gniezno. And the riders lining up now for the final. Indeed, Krzysztof missed out on the place in the final. It was given to Huška. And there's the lineup. Those helmet colours aren't quite right. In fact, you'll find the colours are different when they actually come to the start. But those are the riders lining up. And the grid positions are as follows. On the inside in red, it's Roman Jankowski. Off gate 2 in white, it's Preben Eriksson. Gate 3 in green, it is going to be Mitch Schirra. Eriksson scored 15. He's on the middle position on the front row. Schirra scored 12. Jankowski also scored 12. On the back row of the grid in blue, we have got Andrzej Huška on 10. Next to him in yellow off gate 2 on grid 2, it is Bobby Schwartz. He's on 11. And on the outside in black, it's Zenon Kasperzak. He also scored 11. Those points, though, are only for reference because it's every man for himself, and Jankowski stalls on the line. The winner at Gniezno stalls right at the start. The leader in white then going into the turn is Preben Eriksson. So it's going to be a 5-man 6-lap final, in fact, with Jankowski failing to get the motor underway. Second in green, it is Mitch Schirra. Third in yellow, currently, it is Bobby Schwartz. Then behind Schwartz, we have the man in black, Zenon Kasperzak, using the colours now as used in long track to cover the fact there were 6 races. Don't normally see green and black helmet colours in Speedway. But it looks like Eriksson's going to get the win that he was denied by Jankowski at Gniezno. And indeed, that will have been, that's 10 qualifying races he's won. It's going to be 11 wins out of 12 if he wins this one. And Eriksson certainly dominating these meetings here in Poland. Schirra now coming under pressure from the man in yellow, Bobby Schwartz. The poles being eclipsed somewhat here in the final. They're in the last 2 places, Kasperzak and Huška. Shearer, though, having to battle more for second than the lead, and indeed now Schwartz mounting the assault on the outside line. Third in black, it is Ellen Kasperzak, and at the back in blue, it is André Huschka. But it looks like Eriksson's going to pick up the win here in this 6-lap final. The last race in this presentation here from Leszno. Of course, don't forget, we've got the meeting coming up from Bellevue next week, the British farewell for the major series, before the Tour switches outside Europe. But it looks like Eriksson's going to take the win here at Leszno. But Schwartz now challenging for second place, building up the throttle on the outside. Will Shearer hang on? It looks like the New Zealander might well do it. It's going to be a win. Yes, it is, for the man in white. Preben Eriksson, unbeaten here at Leszno, takes the final this week, with Jankowski having stalled at the start. It's Eriksson first, Schwartz second, Shearer third, Kasperzak fourth, Huschka fifth, and Jankowski given sixth on there, but of course a non-starter following that retirement at the start. So Kasperzak shakes his head as he sees the riders coming in, couldn't quite make it there. But it's a win for Preben Eriksson, won his 5 qualifying races and wins the final here at Leszno. Delighted with things as the riders come up now to the start-finish line for the presentation of the trophies, and an impressive selection of trophies now as Ivan Maugera mounts the rostrum. And many people would say that's the only place for Ivan Maugera to be. Number 1, couldn't ride in the series out here in Poland beyond that first race following that crash at Gniezno. The trophies being lined up as the press waits for the top 3 now to mount the rostrum. Ivan, in many people's opinion, the greatest rider of all time, appeared in his 50th world final earlier this season in the World Long Track. And Ivan, 6 times World Speedway champion, won his last title here in Poland at Katowice back in '79. The top 3 riders now in the meeting mount the rostrum. Preben Eriksson first, Bobby Schwartz second, Mick Shearer third. The crowd gathers to honour Ivan Maugera, and the riders have put on a fine display here at Poland, here at Leszno. We'll see you next week with the Bellevue meeting featuring Bruce Pennell. Good night until next week.